Hi, my name is Jenna and today I'm here doing an adaptations discussion. The book and movie I'm going to be talking about is All the Right Places by Jennifer Niven. This is going to be a spoiler-free discussion, so you can watch the entirety of this video without fear of being spoiled. Basically, I'm going to do a really quick review of the book, a really quick review of the film, and then I am going to talk a little bit about the differences between the two and which one I would pick. If any of you know me at all, you should probably already know the answer to this. So first and foremost though, if you don't know what this book is about, this book follows a dual point of view of Violet and Finch. Violet has recently lost her sister in a car accident and is dealing with the grief. The two of them meet when Violet is trying to take her own life and Finch manages to talk her out of it. Romance ensues and the two come to realize that they can possibly help each other. So I want to talk about the book first. So I gave this book a 2 out of 5 stars. I read it twice now. I've read it 4 years apart. So I read it back in 2016, then I read it again recently, like right before I watched the film, and I wanted to see if my opinions had changed at all. They had not. I still had the same issues with this book as I did the first time I read it, so it wasn't an age thing, it was just I didn't particularly gel with this book thing. I found that I didn't really like any of the characters, particularly the characters of Violet and Finch. I found them to be relatively two-dimensional and sort of defined by, in Violet's case, defined by her grief, and in Finch's case, defined by this mental illness that was never really specified what it was. We all know what it is, but it was never really specified, and that kind of bugged me a little bit. I think it was maybe specified in the book, but it definitely wasn't specified in the film, and that sort of bugs me. Like, if you're going to talk about a mental illness, actually talk about the mental illness. Don't just skirt around it. In saying that, that is why I think this book did not particularly handle its subject matter very well. I thought it handled the matter of grief really well, with Violet and learning how to deal with the grief over her sister. When it came to Finch though, I really didn't think they did a particularly good job of handling that, just mainly because of the fact that they wouldn't say what it was that he was suffering from. And that bugs me for a lot of different reasons, but mostly it just frustrated me because unless you knew a little bit about the author, unless you knew a little bit about what this mental illness looks like, you wouldn't actually know that's what it was. And I mean, isn't the point of mental illness in books and films to educate us on them? Can't really educate us on it if we don't know what it is. I also found in this book that I didn't particularly like any of the secondary characters. I thought they weren't very well fleshed out. They were just sort of there, and I actually thought it hindered the development of the main characters. I would have preferred if there were a few less secondary characters and it focused more on the main characters. In saying that, I also felt like there was a lot going on in this book. So we had the Wanderings, we had Finch and Violet, we had all of their problems, we had all of their friend issues, we had Finch's issues with his dad and with his sisters and his mum, and then Violet, we had her and her parents. There was a lot going on in this book, and at times I was not confused. I wasn't lost exactly, but it was really difficult to keep track of everything and keep track of what was the most important thing that I was meant to be following. Okay, so moving on to the film now. I gave the film a 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely enjoyed it a lot more than I did the book, although I really do think a lot of that had to deal with the performances of Elle Fanning and Justice Smith, who played Violet and Finch. I thought they did such a phenomenal job. Elle in particular, I'm just gonna see if I can make this not as bright because it's making my face look interesting. There was a particular scene with Elle. If any of you have seen the film or you've read the book, it's the scene at the blue hole, which makes sense if you have seen or watched it. Although I don't actually think they ever called it that in the film, so maybe it doesn't make sense. It's the scene with the lots of water, the second time she goes there. That's all I'm gonna say. But that scene in particular, she deserves like an award for that scene because it was brilliant. It got to me, it tugged on my emotions, and I really do think she and Justice are the biggest reason why I really did enjoy this film. I thought that the storyline in this one was much more simplified and definitely focused on the romance between Violet and Finch and on them helping each other with their various mental struggles. So the film did still really just focus on these two main characters, and our secondary characters kind of fell into the typical contemporary stereotypes of the worried parents, the worried but too cool to show it older sister, the ex-boyfriend, the best friend who used to be a best friend but actually has problems of her own. So they're all really standard characters in a story like this, and it felt like we were just ticking boxes here, but the characters did make sense, I guess, within the context of the film, and they also didn't take anything away from the main characters, which is something I guess you could say was a positive. Okay, so now we're going to look at the differences between the book and the movie. So right off the bat, the opening is very, very different. I'm not going to spoil it because, as I said, I really did want this to be a spoiler-free discussion, but the book and the movie have very, very, very different openings. They have the same theme, they have have the same message, the same sort of feel to them, but the actual dynamic of how it all works is very different. And the way the film does it, it actually completely cuts out a storyline from the book, a storyline that I personally felt was really unnecessary. And because it cuts that storyline out, it really simplifies everything and makes it so much easier for our two main characters to spend time together and actually start their relationship. So as I have said multiple times, the film simplifies the plot. So there is an entire subplot to do with Finch's family, with his dad and his younger sister and his mother. That is all taken out of the film, so we don't get to see the struggles he has with his father and his father's new family. We don't actually get to see Decca at all. Decca, the younger sister, she doesn't exist in the film, which does make sense. In a book, you know, you have more time to dedicate to secondary characters, you have more time to flesh out those relationships. Not saying I think the book did a particularly good job at fleshing out those relationships, but it definitely gets an A+ for effort. Whereas with a film, obviously you do have a much shorter running time, you can't spend as much time with these secondary characters, so sometimes things have to give. Decca giving was almost, I would have been surprised if she was still in the film because she doesn't really add a lot to the plot. Finch's dad, on the other hand, and that whole storyline being cut did surprise me a little bit, but also for the better because I always thought that storyline was kind of pointless too. So I think that simplifying the plot worked really, really well for the film because it made people focus completely on Violet and Finch and this relationship that they had together, and you really get to see as Violet gets better, you get to see as Finch gets worse. Also, some of the wanderings were actually cut from the film. I think there are, you know what, I couldn't tell you how many wanderings there are in the book, but in the film they are cut down to the ones that have really significant character developments for Violet and Finch. So only the ones that were really had significant moments in them, significant moments of growth and character development, those are the wanderings that remained in the film, and the others unfortunately were cut, but they can just be like little secrets, I guess, that the book readers get to have together. If I had to pick between recommending the book and recommending the film, I would hands down recommend the film. I think it handles the subject matter mildly better than the book does, and I think that the performances of Elle and Justice really do bring these characters to life in a way that they're just not brought to life in the book. Plus, contemporaries are always better in movie form than they are in book form. It's just a fact. And there you go, that is my adaptations discussion of All the Bright Places. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comment section below if you have read the book or seen the film. Maybe you've done both. What did you think? Which one did you think was better? I would absolutely love to know. If you like this video, be sure to give it a huge thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing. Stay random. Bye.